Legends, here we are back for another episode. It feels good and I appreciate you tuning in. Today, I want to touch on a topic as we near the end of 2025 and heading into 2026. It's something that I believe we don't put enough importance towards, and that is investing in yourself as an individual. I think we as humans become very invested in finding the one, achieving material success, getting the dream home, having the dream career, and finding a husband or wife that we can start a family with. I think there's a lot of importance placed upon that. There's a lot of pressure from society to have that all figured out by a young age. But there's not as much importance placed upon how you feel about yourself, how you interact with others, how you think and relate to yourself behind closed doors when no one else is watching. I think some of the reasons we don't place much importance upon this is because it can potentially be perceived in a self-absorbed way. Like you shouldn't be too obsessed with your image or how you look. And I agree with that to a certain extent. I think what is more important is how you feel about yourself and the way that you are as a human and the way that you show up in the world. That is really important. And I believe the way that you see yourself and relate to yourself impacts everything you create. It impacts the way you relate. And it impacts the overall satisfaction that you can experience as a human. So in today's episode, we're going to unpack the importance of investing in yourself and embracing yourself. And I'm going to share some of the practices and thought patterns and approaches that I've taken towards dialing in my health, building wealth, and building a sense of self-acceptance and self-reliance with myself as an individual. Because I believe you and I and we have immense power, not in a controlling, dominating kind of way, but the way that I treat someone else can have such a profound impact on how they go and treat other people and treat themselves. So I believe we all have a big responsibility in life to treat ourselves with kindness and respect and love, and others with that same kind of energy as well. And it literally ripples out into the world in a positive way. So I might not be able to change the world, but I'm able to change myself, and I'm able to accept and love myself, and I'm able to share that with other people as well. And they're able to go and share that with others. And it has a beautiful butterfly effect, a ripple out into the world. So where I want to kick this episode off is where it all began, I suppose. Growing up, I still am the eldest of three boys. And I didn't really have a role model as such, or someone that I felt like always had my back. So I, for most of my life, was fairly shy and introverted. I was a people pleaser. I would do whatever I could to keep the peace and smooth things over, to avoid confrontation and conflict. And as I developed as a teenager and an adult, it became apparent in relationships that I got into how I wouldn't speak my truth. I didn't really know what I wanted. I didn't really speak up for myself or stand up for myself because I didn't really know what I stood for. I hadn't really clarified that. And so I suppose I would mold myself into what people around me were saying or how they were being to fit in and to feel like I had a place too. And this served me in ways. It meant that I was fairly popular. I always had friends. But at the same time, I didn't know really whether I was being myself. I don't think I really knew what it meant to be myself. And I watched a great movie last night that had George Clooney and Adam Sandler in it. It's a new one. And it's about George Clooney and how he's an actor. And it's about his life and how he spends his life acting and behaving as someone that he's not. That almost becomes his reality, and he loses touch with or forgets what it even means to be himself. And there's a quote or a line in the movie that says, the hardest thing that you will ever do in life is be yourself. The hardest thing you could ever do in life is to be yourself. Because often that means experiencing discomfort. It means speaking up and being honest. It means saying no to things that feel like a no to you. And it can mean separating yourself from certain people. But that is also a form of self-love and self-respect for both yourself and for them. Because if you're doing something for someone that you really don't want to do, or if you're staying friends with someone or staying in a relationship with someone because you fear breaking their heart, or you fear letting them down, or you fear that discomfort that it will come as a result of you cutting that energetic cord, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing them a disservice as well. And so you're not respecting yourself and you're not respecting them. So coming back to my point of getting to know yourself, investing in yourself is the greatest investment that you'll make, because it's not self-absorbed, it's self-respect. And like I said, this ripples out into everything that you do, into everyone that you meet. I like to keep it very simple. People ask me, how do you stay so consistent with your training? How do you stay in great shape all year round? And for me, the answer is very simple. It's become a part of my routine. It's become a part of who I am. And I get my workout done first thing in the morning. And for most people, that doesn't work. People say, I'm just not a morning person, and that's totally okay. But if I was to put my workout off until the afternoon or the evening, I've got the whole day to talk myself out of it. There are so many things that could come up throughout my day that could pull me away from potentially getting that workout in. But when I get my workout done first thing in the morning, it's pretty hard to have a bad day after that, because I've done something really positive for myself in the morning. I feel empowered after I finish a workout. I feel alive. I feel energized. It's not going to work for everyone, but it's important to find what does work for you. So when someone asks me how I stay consistent with my training, it's rather simple. I've found something I genuinely enjoy. It's easily accessible. I've got my pull-up bar and my dip station in my house. And every morning, it's the first thing that I do. I have a coffee and I train. And I love practicing handstands. I love getting better with pull-ups and dips, push-ups and rows. And every second day, I do my paddle training, which helps me being landlocked and not being able to get out and surf as often as I'd like. It helps me develop my paddle power. And it's something that I genuinely enjoy, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that I always want to do it, but it's something that anchors me and starts the day in a positive way. So that's how I stay consistent. So my invitation to you is to explore different training styles out there. There are so many different training modalities that you can explore, and perhaps challenging that story or that narrative that you have in your mind that says, I struggle with consistency, or exercise is not my thing, or I don't like going to the gym. Get curious about those stories that you have and start to question them. Are they really true? Or is it just the fact you've not yet found something that you enjoy, something that you can stick to, something you can progress within? When you find some form of physical activity that gets you out of your busy mind and into your body, and you can stick with it, and you can start to progress within that physical activity, it can be addictive, and it can honestly improve every aspect of your life. If I was talking to someone that didn't know where to begin, that wanted to live a happier life, I would start with some kind of physical practice, even if it's getting out for a walk every single day, even if it's doing a dance class, even if it's picking up a bike and going for a ride. Just getting out of the house, getting out into nature, getting into your body can help you build momentum that is pretty powerful. So I challenge you to question those narratives that say, I'm just not consistent. I just don't like exercise. I just can't do this and I can't do that. That would be a really beautiful place to start in 2026. Start questioning those limiting beliefs. Start questioning those narratives and start creating new patterns, new behaviors that are more empowering, that are more uplifting, because from that place, you become unstoppable. But the relationship you have with yourself, how you see yourself, how you treat yourself, how you take responsibility for your actions every single day, this is important. And we don't place enough importance upon this. We place more importance upon achieving all the external things. But what if you were to start placing more importance upon how you're living, how you're showing up today? That's what really counts. That's what really matters. So for me, what I've done really well in 2025 and what I'm going to be carrying into 2026 is the way in which I show up for myself through my physical practice, my body weight training, my paddle training. The way that I've been able this year, and I guess last year as well, take away some of the pressure that I used to place upon myself with diet and with all that kind of stuff. I used to be very restrictive with my eating. I became too restrictive to the point where I was trying to improve my health through being strict with my dieting. But the stress that that was causing was having a negative effect on my health anyway. So anything that can become too stress inducing, anything that becomes too rigid and restrictive can have a negative effect and kind of discount what it is that you're trying to do in the first place. So over the last couple of years, I've been more of a flexitarian. I've allowed myself to enjoy a variety of different foods and to focus more so on whole foods. But at the same time, every now and then I enjoy a bit of a treat and I relax. Food isn't as much of a source of stress for me as it once was when I first got into healthy living. Food is nourishment, food is fuel, food is energy, and food is information ultimately. But the state that you're in when you consume food also impacts the way in which you digest and absorb the nutrients that you're consuming. So if you're in a heightened state, if you're distracted, if you're always busy, then the food that you're eating, you're probably not going to digest and metabolize it as effectively as you would if you were in a more present, grateful, and peaceful state. And let me be honest, I'm not perfect at this. Sometimes I become so in the zone and in the rhythm of life that I'm not that present and I'm not that aware and I'm just going through the motions, even when I eat. But it is an important reminder for me and for you that food is a gift. Food is a way of coming together with those that we love. And it's something that we can appreciate and express gratitude towards. And I think the more we can cultivate a peaceful internal state within everything that we do, whether that's the work that we do, the relationships that we have, the food that we get to eat. It's going to have a positive effect on our lives and the people that are around us as well. The energy that you express out into the world, it matters. It matters. And for a while in life, I didn't really see the importance of that. It was more about, well, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care. No one really cares. And that's not a very productive way to look out into the world and to look at myself. So this is why 2025, it's been a year of self-care, self-acceptance, taking time and space to be with myself, to feel whatever needs to be felt. And it's been a bit of a year of grief as well. After losing my nan, she was the biggest light and ray of sunshine in my life. And I loved her dearly, and I still do, and I always will. But even when that happened, allowing myself to be with all of that and to support my family through that as best as I could, and to be in it with them, was a gift. It was a gift. And it was tough at the same time. A decision that I made many years ago now. It's been 4 years since I made the decision to let go of alcohol completely, cold turkey. And I didn't necessarily say that I'm never going to drink again. I just said that I'm going to take a break, and I've not looked back since. And it's been a really great decision for me, because alcohol and me, we didn't have the healthiest relationship. I was a binge drinker, and it was 0 to 100. If I didn't have a drink in my hand, then what on earth was I doing? And I got caught up in the unspoken competition of who could outdrink. If I didn't have a drink in my hand, then what the hell was I doing? I got caught up in the unspoken competition of who could drink the most, stay out the latest, and push things the furthest. And in Australia and probably a lot of the Western countries, there is a pretty strong drinking culture. It's something that's very socially acceptable. But for me, I'd make a fool of myself. I wasn't proud of the way that I'd show up when I was drunk. And for me, it just stopped making sense. It was expensive. It was a massive expense, not only to my pocket, my finances, but also my mental state, my physical state. And I don't miss the hangovers. I don't miss those nights that are a big blur, things that I may have said that I wouldn't have otherwise said had I been sober. I don't miss any of that. I'm so much better for it. I'm clearer for it. I'm calmer for it. And I'm more attuned as a result as well. I feel more settled with the silence and the stillness, and I feel more settled within who I am as a person. And I think that I'm a much better person without it. And I can actually have a lot more fun without alcohol. So for me, that was a decision that has now stuck. It's just who I am. And it's not something that I wear with a badge of honor and posture as though I'm better than anyone else. But it's a decision that's made a lot of sense for me and something that I am happy about. And it's also something that's meant in social situations, it's not that awkward. People don't really care, but it can take its toll as well. If I'm around people that are wasted, it's hard to relate when you're sober. So for me, it's been the right decision, and it's a decision that I'll continue to live by. And anyone that continues to drink, I respect that. You do you. That's totally okay. But this has helped me invest in myself in a more positive way. The next piece of the puzzle that I want to touch on in this episode is in terms of finances, because this is a huge one. I think finances are a huge source of stress for many people. We're living in a time where the Australian and or the American dream of the white picket fence, the house with kids and a family, it's a dream that seems to be getting out of reach for a lot of people. With the housing market increasing, it can feel a bit disheartening. It can feel as though, am I ever going to achieve that goal or that dream? And do I even want that anymore? Do I even want to save up a huge amount of money to then essentially have a lot of debt, have a lot of money that I owe the banks? And the other trap is, whether you get stuck renting for the rest of your life. You've got to pay to live. My parents have always said to me, you've got to pay your way. They've never given me any handouts, and it's always been about building my own foundation, building my own life and creating a way forward. And there are so many options. For a while, I did the spontaneous overseas travel, digital nomad lifestyle and built my business. And that was awesome and I enjoyed it. But it really felt difficult to settle, and whether I was really going to buy a house overseas somewhere, it didn't make sense anymore. After a few years of doing that and living that lifestyle, it made sense for me to come back to Australia and settle back in, reestablish myself and build more of a base and really get clear on what the next 5 to 10 years look like. And now it's been a couple years since I've been back in Australia, and I've been able this year to earn more money than I've earned in a single year ever in my life. And so I've got options and I've got a sense of freedom, but with that comes the need to make some kind of decision. So first of all, I want to share what has helped me build a stronger financial base. And it's really come down to distinguishing the difference between an investment and an expense. In my early 20s, most of my earnings went out into expenses. It was like I had a cup that had a hole in it. And so I was earning money consistently, but there was the hole in this cup. So it was continuously getting to zero. At some stage, I had $5,000 in credit card debt. And I've obviously been able to pay all of that off. And I got rid of that credit card pretty quickly. But I had to distinguish the difference between investments and expenses, because as I said, in my early 20s, I had no problem with buying the latest gadgets, buying a lot of different clothes, watches, an expensive car, jewelry, drinks at the bar, gambling, unhealthy food, meals out all the time. And it was fun while it lasted. But I also realized that I was projecting this appearance of wealth. I was making it seem as though I was rich or wealthy, but really it was this trap of consumerism, materialism, having all the things, but feeling empty inside and feeling depleted inside and not having really much to show for the work that I was doing. So I wasn't really saving that much money, and I wasn't investing my money wisely. And so I didn't have a problem with doing that or living that way for a while, but eventually I had to become curious about these habits, these ways of spending that weren't really serving me anymore. So when I first started my business, before I started my business, for a long time, what no one saw is how I sat on the sidelines watching other people post content, watching other people get clients and coach people and do what I wanted to do. But I held myself back from really diving in and stepping into that arena because I feared the judgment of other people. I feared what other people would think about me. And so I held myself back and I thought, I've got to have it all figured out. I've got to know exactly what to do or what the best strategy is. And I came across this business coach who presented himself as someone that was very successful, knew a lot about business and seemed to know what he was talking about. And he offered me a free strategy call and he walked me through a little bit about his program. And he was a really solid salesman and he knew very well how to prey upon pain points and how to challenge someone. And this was when I was with my first girlfriend. And she had known that I had wanted to start a business and she wanted to start that as well. And this was not long before we ventured off overseas. And I guess I just I hadn't until that point backed myself. And he gave me this offer and he was going to bring me into his coaching program for $8,000. And I figured I better put my money where my mouth is. That was a huge amount of money to me back then to invest in myself. And he also promised me the world. And he said that my girlfriend at the time could join the program as well, so we could kind of launch our businesses together. And my intention on the call was to consult with my partner, to have a chat with her and say, look, this is the offer, and have a chat with her. But he wasn't going to let me get off that call. He wanted to make the deal then and there. And he really dived into some pain points and challenged me and said, well, why can't you make the decision? He didn't say it outwardly, but essentially what he was saying was, a real man wouldn't have to go and get approval or anything like that from his girlfriend. And so I thought, you know what? Yeah, I am going to put my money where my mouth is. And on that call, I paid $8,000, invested in him, and we joined the program. I told her, thinking that she would be proud of me, perhaps. I wasn't really sure how she was going to react, but her reaction shocked me a little bit. I honestly thought that she was going to leave me. I thought that was it. She was so angry, even though it was all my money that I had saved up. We weren't sharing our finances as such at that point, but we did have the intention to be going overseas very soon. And so I saw this as an opportunity, almost as a bit of a safety net, a bit of security to help me build my business. It was like this guy offered me a level of certainty that I hadn't felt within myself. And there were guarantees and this and that. And in the first month of starting this program, we both joined and it seemed to be pretty good. And I thought, yeah, look, I've made a good decision, and she maybe could see that as well. But not long after the first month, the coach kind of went MIA. He disappeared for a little bit. And after a couple of weeks, he kind of came back and said, look, I've been having some family challenges, and apologized. And things had kind of changed. It wasn't really the same. I didn't feel like he was bringing the same energy to what he brought in that first call that we had together. And it was just different. And I said, look, man, I've paid all of this money. I've invested in you. I've put my trust in you. And I just don't feel as though you're delivering upon what you promised. And this is when we were now overseas. And I said, look, I want out. I want you to refund me the money, and yeah, we'll go our separate ways. And this was an uncomfortable conversation to have. He wasn't overly receptive to it. He did take a little bit of responsibility and apologize, but he said, look, leave it with me. I'll sit with it. And he eventually came back and said that he wasn't going to refund anything. And so I was very angry. I was super frustrated. And I was ashamed and I was embarrassed as well. And I felt a lot of guilt as a result of all that, because ultimately it was me that had made that decision. And so my girlfriend at the time and I decided to leave the program, decided to focus on ourselves and focus on our own path. by this stage, I'd started creating content, putting content out there, and I was building a bit of my own confidence. I was building my own path in a way. And so we figured that we don't need him. We're going to go our separate ways, cut our losses. And that's what we did. And ultimately, I had to turn that frustration I had towards him towards myself, but also allow it to dissolve and allow myself to take the lessons and the blessings from that experience. And there was, in a way, a gift within that, because that was the most money I'd ever invested in myself. And so I was proud of the fact that I did take a risk. I did invest in myself in that way. And I took the chance, and it didn't work out, but I invested in myself. As it turned out, months later, me and that partner that I was with, we went our separate ways. And then all of a sudden I was solo traveling on my own. I was overseas. I didn't have a full-time job or anything like that. So I had a lot of time and energy to focus on my business and what I wanted to create and how I wanted to show up. And it was a really interesting time. It was a transformational time, because I'd gotten out of my first serious relationship of over 5 years. And all of a sudden I was solo traveling on the other side of the world, so far away from everything and everyone that I once knew. And it was an opportunity for me to create a new relationship with myself. And I started documenting that journey and what I was learning, what I was experiencing. And this is what led me to gain over 35,000 followers on Instagram and also on TikTok. And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you what's possible when you stop outsourcing your power, when you stop outsourcing your trust, and you start taking responsibility for your own life and for your own direction, and you start owning the journey and recognizing that you don't have to posture as though you've got this perfect life. You don't have to posture as though you know it all and that you've got it all figured out. But when you show up with your full humanness and you share the journey, people resonate with that. People feel that in their soul. People just know that you're being genuine. And that's what people really relate to and respond best to. Before that, I tried to make out as though I had everything figured out. I tried to come across as though I'm wealthy and present myself in such a way. But it wasn't overly real. It wasn't overly genuine, but I didn't know any other way. And I remember my mum saying, and it's something that has always stuck with me, especially when I was training hard in the gym and I was really focused on my external appearance. That hasn't changed. I still care about the way that I present myself. But she used to say to me, Jake, it's not about how you look on the outside. It's what's inside that counts. And it was such a motherly thing to say. I thought, you would say that, Mum. And was I open to hearing it? Was I going to listen to her? Of course I wasn't. I had to figure that out for myself. I had to come to that realization for myself. But I do appreciate the things that my mum over the years and my dad have taught me. They've taught me a lot. They've taught me things that maybe in the first instance I was resistant towards, and as if I'm going to listen to you, as if you're going to tell me what to do. But as I've learned through my own personal experiences, it's been a reminder, oh yeah, Mum and Dad, they did say that at some point. Thanks, Mum and Dad. So never underestimate the power within helping others. Even if they don't want your help, you can still help them. Even if they're not receptive, that's okay. Maybe one day they'll learn through their own experience, however that may be. So me going on this journey and distinguishing the difference between investments and expenses, it's been a huge journey for me, to the point where Now I've been able to build a business that, I got to be real with you, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not living in Bali in my own private villa. I'm not going to sit here and posture as though I'm an expert or I'm a millionaire, because I'm not. I'm in this with you. I'm figuring this out as I go. I'm doing the best that I can to show up as honestly as I can, and to trust that things are working out. And they are, because life is pretty damn good. Life is pretty damn good. And when I let go of all the things that I think I should be, or all the things that I think I should have, life's even better. It allows me to be grateful for everything that I already have and who I already am. But it doesn't mean that I become complacent and lose that drive or momentum towards what it is that I'm calling in. It just means that I can be grateful now and enjoy the journey now. And that's another lesson that was important for me to learn. So invest in yourself, whether that be financially, whether that be just through having a physical practice that empowers you, that strengthens you, that mobilizes you, that gets you into your body and out of your mind, that can be sometimes detrimental. Your mind, the stories, the busyness that can happen up here can sometimes lead to a big downward spiral that is very unproductive. And it's something that I'm reminded of constantly. And one of the ways that I'm able to come out of that downward spiral is by coming back into my body, because your mind can be in the future, it can be in the past, but your body is in the present. And there may be some healers out there that say, well, your body holds trauma from past experiences. And I hear you, I get that. But ultimately, your body is always here in the present. And you can come out of those downward spirals by breathing deeply, feeling fully, planting your feet into the earth, and being in your physical body now. It may not work for you, but it does work for me. It is helpful when my mind starts to spiral into the past or into the future. So distinguishing between investments and expenses, ultimately, an expense is anything that depletes you and that doesn't really return any value back to you. An investment is something that you invest in now that has the possibility to return value to you in the future, or potentially in some cases return value to you pretty quickly. But in most cases, that feedback isn't always instantaneous. So the issue is, most of us are conditioned to seek out instant gratification, which could be buying that new thing that you want. You get that instant hit of gratification, but soon after, you've spent that money and the fad wears off. Whereas when you make investments now, you may not experience that instant gratification, that instant return, that instant feedback. But in the future, it's something that can grow and compound over time. So whenever you spend money, it goes to zero. You're never going to see that again. But when you invest that money, it may not be money that you can go and spend again, but it's money that's still there. It's an asset that can continue to grow and actually compound year after year. And so for me, this has meant investing in stocks. It's meant investing in crypto. It's meant investing and saving my money in bank accounts that have good interest rates and allow my money to continue to grow. And again, I'm not a financial expert. None of this is financial advice, of course. But for me, it's just meant building a base. It's meant being more intentional with the way that I'm investing my money, and remembering that I'm my greatest investment. The way I see myself, the way I treat myself, the way I show up for myself is the greatest investment that I'll make. The other thing when it comes to finances and building wealth, I believe that the relationship you have with money is really important. If you see money as something that is a scarce resource, that is difficult to attain and difficult to retain, difficult to keep, then you may spend impulsively. You may find it difficult to get a well-paying job or to build a successful business. But if you see money as something that there is an abundant supply of, and if you see yourself as someone that is abundant already, that has an infinite earning potential, if you see the resources you have now as a gift from God or the universe, an opportunity, if you can be grateful for every dollar that you spend or invest, this in a way creates a healthier, more free-flowing, receptive relationship with money. But if it's something that you don't want to let go of because you're worried that you're not going to be able to have enough for this or for that, then you're kind of creating these blockages or these restrictions that can potentially close you off to allowing more in. And again, some of this is spiritual, some of this is practical. And at the end of the day, you've got to figure out what works well for you. But when I was traveling overseas, money was somewhat scarce. I didn't have an abundant supply of money, or maybe I did, but it wasn't as though I was sitting pretty on stacks of cash. So there were moments where I did feel a bit of fear. There were moments where I did feel a bit of stress about whether I was going to continue traveling for as long as I wanted to travel. However, interesting synchronicities came up. I started to land high-paying clients that gave me more financial stability while I was traveling. I had opportunities where I was able to secure a place and live rent-free for 3 months throughout the whole summer in Portugal, in an area that is highly sought after, that people pay a lot just to rent a place for. And call this divine timing, synchronicities, or being aligned and trusting in a higher power, or trusting in myself that things will work out. I will figure things out. I could have been stressed. I could have not trusted. I could have made impulsive, bad decisions, but travel definitely taught me to stay steady, to stay calm, to stay grounded, and to trust that it's going to work out. So if you're in a position right now where money is a challenge for you, just see if it's possible to eliminate debt, to reduce some of the expenses that you have, whether that's cutting out some subscriptions, whether that's canceling the gym membership and getting out and using bodyweight training or something instead, maybe eating out less, maybe cooking more, maybe spending less money on coffees, but also increasing your earning potential as well. We're living in a time where you can create something once, and that can be redistributed an infinite number of times, which can ultimately really increase your earning potential. My book that I wrote, it took me a long time to write this book. It took me a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get it to this final finished product. But now that it's finished, I have the digital copy of this. I have an audiobook version of this as well. That can be purchased an infinite number of times by people all over the world. And I don't really have to put that much more time or energy into it. That's one example of how you can create additional revenue streams for yourself, whether that be through a book, whether that be through some kind of digital product or service. Remembering that a service is often something that you've got to still service, so there's still that fulfillment aspect of it. But you've got to start thinking more broadly, more abundantly. Be resourceful with your thinking. Be resourceful with your actions. Be resourceful with the resources that you have. If you're spending on things that aren't bringing any value back to you, then you're always going to go to zero. You're always going to feel depleted. So getting your finances in order is an energetic game. It's a game of clarity. It's a game of intentionality. It's a game of getting honest with yourself and starting to take responsibility. You can't blame your parents for your money patterns. You can't, there comes a point where it's just unproductive to blame anyone else but yourself. And don't even blame yourself. Don't get stuck in the energy of blame. Just take responsibility. Take accountability for your actions, for your results, and you will become unstoppable. You will build momentum. And momentum sometimes can be difficult to build, but once you do build that momentum, it's not that difficult to maintain that momentum. But surround yourself with people that think big. Surround yourself with people that empower you, that inspire you, that you relate to. Relationships are another really important pillar. Health, wealth, relationships, these are three of the most important pillars. And number 4 as well is location. I think the location you're in really does impact your way of thinking, feeling, acting. It massively impacts everything. So health, wealth, relationships, and location, these are important pillars in life to dial in, to get clear on. They're big decisions. They're big aspects of life to really dial in. So for me, this year, 2025, it's been getting clear on what that means for me, what's important for me, and carrying that into 2026. I'm very clear on where I want to be location-wise. I'm very clear on the kind of relationship and relationships that I value. And I'm okay with having a small circle. The older I get, the more it's about quality over quantity. I don't care about the surface level friendships and relationships, the people that if I don't reach out to them, they won't reach out to me. I've not got that much time for those relationships anymore. There's got to be a level of reciprocity. And being someone that really does care, when I feel as though I'm putting energy into someone or something and it's not being reciprocated, often I can make that mean something about me. Oh, well, maybe they don't care about me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this, maybe that. But at the end of the day, those are just stories. Those aren't the full truth. And maybe it's just that they don't care as much. Maybe they've got a lot more going on. Maybe they've got things that are going on and maybe they just don't show up in the way that I value. And that's okay. That's clarity. But when I know what I value, when I know who I am, when I know what I expect from relationships, then I won't settle for anything less. And if that means having a smaller circle, if that means embracing a bit of loneliness here and there, I'm cool with that too. I can accept that. But the other important thing is the expectations that I may have of someone else in a relationship, they may not always be able to meet those expectations. And I've got to accept that too. I've got to acknowledge that sometimes my expectations may be unrealistic. And at the end of the day, we all have something going on. No matter what you're going through, it doesn't necessarily make you special because we're all going through something in life. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be going through anything tough or you should just suck it up. But it just means that we've all got things that we've got to work through in life, and that's totally okay. But remember to be kind to yourself. Remember to invest in relationships and people that invest in you. And surround yourself with people that inspire you. If it means keeping your circle small, that's totally okay. So as I mentioned, my health is dialed in this year. It's been the most consistent that I've ever been in a year with my training. I've been pretty flexible with my eating, still quite healthy, but also enjoying life, enjoying the finer things in life, enjoying the simple things in life. My relationships this year have been beautiful. I've made some incredible friends at work. I love my family. I've been able to spend so much quality time with my family. The location side of things, I know where I'm planning to live in 2026, and it's just a matter of time and patience and trust and surrender and aligned action. So I'm dialed in. 2025's been sick. 2026 is going to be even better. Yes, there's still a lot of room for growth and improvement, but I'm proud of the way that I've shown up. I hope that you're proud of how you've shown up in 2025, and I hope you take your best self into 2026. You're awesome. You're amazing. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. Until the next episode, SPAC is out. Venture beyond limitation. Let's go.